And I happened to be watching television one night when there was a plane crash, and the newsman said, the names of the victims have not been released yet because so many people fly on domestic airlines under false names. And I thought, what? Why? Why on earth would that be? And then after about 5 minutes I realized, okay, they're trading frequent flyer miles, they're changing reservations, all kinds of things like that. And that's not as easy to do these days because you have to show ID, but at the time when I was thinking about Jane, that was what was possible. So I thought, if there is a need for people to disappear, and then I began to think about all the different kinds of people who might want to disappear or use false identities or use false credentials, then there's going to be somebody who provides that service. And of course there are people who do that. But I wanted this person to be benevolent, to save people. And Jane really grew out of all of those ways of thinking, and they all sort of came together at once, with the notion that as much as I have great respect for the law enforcement community and the system, they're not very good at protecting victims, at protecting certain kinds of victims, abused women, children, and so on. And so that was Jane's initial function. Jane was going to be one of the people who took people who were in terrible danger that the authorities, for one reason or another, couldn't help, and made them disappear and made them reappear somewhere else with new credentials and a new chance at life. So, and that also fit another side of all of this, which was that the Senecas, in addition to the other Iroquois tribes, were extremely prolific adopters. That is, the custom was often to take a person who was either a captive or a fugitive or possibly a white who had wandered off and didn't want to live in the colonies anymore, and make them into a Seneca. And the way they did that was that they often would give a person the name of someone who had died or been killed. They would give them that person the deceased's family, possessions, duties, responsibilities, and everything. And in a way, that's one of the ways that people do assume false identities in our society right now, is to find the name of someone who is dead and get his birth certificate and start collecting credentials. So all of these things just sort of began to percolate, and I came up with Jane.
Boy, I can see that being your PhD and research background really came into play, didn't it? I can just see you bubbling with enthusiasm about all the background work that you did.
Well, research is one of my favorite things because when you don't feel like actually working, it can convince you that you're accomplishing something.
Well, and you have. Jane's interesting, too, because her loyalty, well, first place, we didn't mention this, but she does do this for pay.
Well, not exactly. See,
no?
That's another thing. There's a way that I fudged that, and the reason I fudged it is that it was not customary in traditional Seneca society to accept pay for anything. What you would do is favors. You would do a favor for someone, and if he appreciated it, he might do a favor for you, but he might also give you a gift. And so what Jane says to people is, don't give me any money, I don't have any fee for this service, but a year from now, after you're comfortable and you're safe, and you look back on how you felt tonight, remember me and send me a present. And so sometimes Jane gets touching little presents, like a picture drawn by a little girl that she saved somewhere, and sometimes she gets enormous amounts of money.
Well, when I said paid, I guess what I should have said is somehow she ekes out her existence.
Yeah.
You know, it does provide her support, as well as obviously a great feeling about herself doing good work, and you know, so she gets intrinsic and extrinsic reward. But what's also interesting is, to me anyway, is that her loyalty really then is to the person who's her client. It isn't to the law enforcement agencies around her. It isn't to the bad guys chasing, whatever it is. Her job is to get this person to a new life, and therefore she can't really be that judgmental about why the person is running. And some of the people in the books that she's moving along aren't running because they're necessarily doing something good. They may be running. Isn't it Shadow Woman when it starts out with a guy is tangled with the mob, even if he's done it somewhat by accident?
Well, in that case, what she says when she's making her reasoning for doing this is that he caused his own trouble, but he was not bad enough to die just yet. And that seems to be a reasonable explanation for why you would help somebody. That is, whatever they've done isn't deserving of a capital punishment. You might save them or help them or something. And another point, I hate to quote myself in these things, but
who better?
But she tells somebody who asks her why she got into this, because one day somebody was drowning and I knew how to swim. You would do the same thing.
Right. What I really meant, I guess, was not so much that she was saving outrightly villainous people, as that it's certainly true that conventional law enforcement or whatever really wouldn't apply to some of these people.
Right.
I mean, if they went like to the witness protection program, it wouldn't do them any good.
They're not witnesses. They're simply people who are involved in something that they shouldn't have been. And,
right. And they're sort of on the shady side of things. So she really has got a very interesting niche that she fills. What's also fascinating in the books, aside from any moral or philosophical discussion that we might be having, is that you get such a chance to due process. And when I say due process, I don't mean in the legal thing. I mean the whole process of disappearing, all the techniques. And I think to myself, in fact, I think I might have said it in my review of The Face Changers, your current book, is that I'm dying to know if you actually test this stuff out in airports and other places to see if it'll work.
No, not me. I'm not a believer in going out and actually testing things like that. Especially in airports. You really don't want to fool around in airports.
Well, that crossed my mind, that you might yourself find yourself in the wrong side of the law if you actually tried to work out a few of these capers in real life.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't want to test anything. No road tests, but that is an aspect of this that I've enjoyed so much. It really is a lot of fun to sort of figure out how one does these things, and sometimes they're accurate and sometimes they're theoretical. Sometimes it's something that I discovered that somebody actually did, and sometimes it's just something that I thought might occur or might be done. But that really is, well, the aspect of this that I like the most, that's the most fun, is that when Jane is working, when she's out there doing it, you have to imagine the world, the urban world that she's in, as though it were the forest, as though it were 300 years ago, and there are enemies out there, and there are dangers, and so on. When Jane walks into a room, she's not just looking at all of the people to see, whether there's somebody she knows. She's looking, does that person see me? Is that somebody that do I see a glint of recognition? Is that person a security guard? Could I use him to get between me and that person? Is that a real window, or is there a way of getting out? What are the other exits? What can I do? And it's sort of fun to have her look at the world that way, and also to look at the world in a way that's, well, the rest of us are all sort of walking around happily drinking our coffee or talking to each other or something, and an enormously tense drama might be going on right under our noses between Jane and the people who are after her.
So she really has to be able to change her own identity, if not dramatically, at least enough to confuse anyone who might be looking for her.
Right, and to get them to underestimate her, which is part of the trick.
Is that one reason you made her a female? Is she likely to be less obvious a threat to the bad guys?
Well, in a way. I mean, I would reverse that. In other words, what I do is have Jane use the fact that she's a woman to gain certain advantages.